So the key to knowing and doing the will of God first comes from faith, adjustments, and then obedience to God. But what kind of adjustments are required? Well, trying to answer that question might be like trying to list all the things that God could possibly ask you to do. That could be endless. So instead, the author wants to point us toward examples and give us general categories of the kinds of adjustments that may be required. So, adjustments might be asked of us in the following areas. In your circumstances, like job, home, finances, or others. In your relationships, family, friends, business associates, and others. In your thinking, your prejudices, your methods, your potential. In commitments to family, to church, to job, to tradition. These adjustments might be in your actions, how you pray, how you give, how you serve, and in your beliefs about God, about His purposes, His ways, your relationship to Him, or other ways. And this list can go on and on. The major adjustment will come at the point of acting on your faith. So first, decide what you believe about God, and that mental decision might be the easy part, but then pray and learn and discover what acting on that belief looks like in the action to demonstrate that faith. You may be called to attempt things only God can do, whereas you might be used to only attempting things you thought you could do. And sometimes these adjustments can be involved in several areas all at once. If you take some time to read Acts chapter 10, verses 1 through 20, you'll see Peter's experience with Cornelius, which probably required multiple adjustments. Peter's relationship with his family, Peter's relationships with Gentiles, his thinking and beliefs about what is clean and unclean, adjustments to his commitments about the traditions of the Jews, and his actions regarding fellowship with the Gentiles. Being able to place a title on the adjustment is not as important as you're identifying what change it is that God wants you to make to Him, His purposes, and His ways. Now, God frequently requires us to make adjustments in areas of our lives that we never would have previously considered making adjustments in. You may have heard somebody say, don't ever tell God what you are not willing to do, because that will be the very thing that God ends up asking you to do. God's not looking for ways to make us squirm. He does, however, want to be the Lord of your life. So wherever you identify a place where you refuse to allow His lordship, that's the place that He's going to go to work. He's interested in absolute surrender. God may or may not require you to do that very thing that you identified. But He will keep working on you until you are willing for Him to be Lord of all. Remember, because the Lord loves you, His will is always best for you. So any adjustment that God asks you to make in your life is for your good. And as you follow Him, the time may come that your future and your life may depend on you adjusting quickly to God's directives. And remember, this adjusting is always to a person. We adjust our lives to God. We adjust our viewpoints to be like His viewpoints, our ways to be like His ways. And then after we make those adjustments, He's going to reveal His will so that we can obey Him. When we obey, we will experience God doing through us something that only God can do. So you've been here with me for 8 units. That's at least 35 different lessons. Can you describe to yourself at least one adjustment in your thinking as you have studied this course? Has God ever asked you to make a major adjustment to Him in your life so far? Here are some really interesting statements by godly men, so we can see the kind of adjustments that this person has had or was willing to make. The first one is David Livingstone, and he says, "Forbid that we should ever consider the holding of a commission from the King of Kings a sacrifice, so long as other men esteem the service of an earthly government as an honor. I am a missionary, heart and soul. God Himself had an only son, and He was a missionary and a physician. A poor, poor imitation I am, or wish to be, but in this service I hope to live. In it I wish to die. I still prefer poverty and missions service to riches and ease. That is my choice." He was willing to live as a povertous missionary in Africa rather than an esteemed doctor in his homeland. Jim Elliot, which is a missionary to the Quichua Indians in South America, says he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. Jim is willing to give up earthly things for a heavenly reward. and he was actually killed by South American Indians as he sought to spread the gospel to those who had never heard about Jesus. Bob Pierce, who established World Vision and Samaritan's Purse, says, "Let my heart be broken by the things that break the heart of God." He was willing to be broken-hearted so that he could be like the Father. Oswald J. Smith, a missionary statesman of Canada, says, "I want thy plan, O God, for my life. May I be happy and contented, whether in the homeland or on the foreign field, whether married or alone, in happiness or sorrow, health or sickness, prosperity or adversity. I want thy plan, O God, for my life. I want it. Oh, I want it." Oswald so wanted God's plan for his own life that he was willing to be content with any pleasure or any adversity. And the last one is from C.T. Studd, who was a missionary to China, India, and Africa, and he says, "If Jesus Christ be God and died for me, then no sacrifice is too great for me to give for him." He's willing to make any sacrifice for Jesus' sake. Which one of those quotes is the most meaningful for you? Think about the level of commitment that comes and is required in that quote. If you're willing to make a similar commitment to your lordship to Christ, spend a few moments in prayer expressing your willingness to adjust your life to God. We can't stay where we are and go in obedience to the will of God. These adjustments come first. Keep in mind that the God who calls you is also the one who will enable you to do his will. Now, in the remainder of this unit, we're going to be looking at these 2 points: that obedience is costly to us and those around us, and that obedience requires a total dependence on God to work through us. When we're willing to surrender everything in our life to the lordship of Christ, we, like Elisha, will find that the adjustments are well worth the reward of experiencing God. And if you're not yet in that place where you're willing to surrender everything, decide today to deny yourself, to take up that cross, and follow him. Here are our summary statements for today. God is interested in my absolute surrender to him as Lord. I adjust to a person. Adjustments are well worth the reward of experiencing God, and the God who calls me is the one who will enable me to do his will. That's all I have for today. Thank you for joining me. Next week, we're going to be talking about that obedience and its high cost. So stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next one.